Hey everybody, this is Ken Morton Jr., and this is the 26th edition of the Hosel Rockets Podcast. We're really grateful that you guys are sticking with us and continue to listen as we talk about all things golf and beyond. And I'm really excited about this week's guest, as we are a lot of ours, to be honest, but this particular one is a dear friend. And a little departure from what we normally get a chance to talk about. While there is certainly golf in his background, and he's done some amazing things with the game of golf, which we'll touch upon later. His story is certainly outside golf, and this week we get a chance to talk to country music star and best-selling author Jimmy Wayne. But before we go there, and before I give you a little background on Jimmy, I thought I would kind of touch upon the state of our industry at the moment and make a little analogy with golf and what's going on the equipment side of golf at the moment. Never before have we ever seen shortages and delays in equipment as we are right now. Yesterday we placed a couple custom orders with products, and here we are in early June, and we were quoted late December delivery on a couple of these, and I won't throw them under the bus, but suffice it to say it was one of the big guys, and it's not uncommon for us to see months, sometimes 3-4 months delays on products. And there's an analogy somewhere in there with our golf swings and golf games and patience and, taking it easy and keeping, things in perspective when we're out on the golf course. That's certainly applying when it's coming to club fittings and purchasing new equipment out there right now. And I wanted to give everybody kind of a little bit of background on maybe kind of why that is. I find it a little bit interesting. I think some of the listeners will as well, but when COVID hit back in early March for here in the U.S., it had been raging through China, where a lion's share of all of the equipment is made for a good 60 to 90 days, and had all but shut down all of the manufacturing plants. So even if COVID hadn't extended to the U.S., we would have seen huge shortages of product just because the factories weren't open in actually building and casting and making all the golf clubs overseas. But then at that point at which it did hit in the U.S. in mid to late March, when everything was shut down, including lots of golf courses and retail stores across the U.S., all of the manufacturers at that point in time, nearly all of them, really cut production and cut expectations on what they thought they were going to sell through the end of the year, canceled production orders overseas, even if they could get made, and really just played it more conservatively, because if you're in charge of a millions of dollars company and you don't feel like you're going to be selling it through, of course you're going to do that, and who can blame them? But then this weird thing happened when we had a chance to reopen the golf courses. Golf was one of the few things that people could actually go out and do. The interest level in our game, all of those people who had said, you know what, I'd love to take up the game, but I don't have time, and now we're working from home, or had needed to find things as an outlet to do with their kids because they were home from school and really needed a diversion to not be locked up in the house. All of a sudden, golf became the golden sport, and we have had a massive influx of new golfers over the last year. I mean, it's crazy to think that a pandemic was a thing that the magic wand for the game of golf as a whole. But it truly it has forever changed our sport at this point in time. And the interest level in new equipment was at an all-time high by summer. So here we have 3 months of China factory shut down, and then 3 months of virtually the world shut down, and then all of a sudden demand unlike it has ever seen before. And all of a sudden there wasn't enough product. And this is, middle of summertime, and fast forward an entire year from now, it hasn't been caught up. The ports have been short. So even when the production did ramp up over in China, where we would normally be getting products in, 60 to 120 days after placing manufacturing orders, they're taking almost twice as long because all of the backup at the ports and them working at half capacity because COVID swept through all the ports, and they're working with far fewer people. We actually had one of our manufacturers go over to the port of LA back in this was late March, early April, and they counted 90 ships lined up in a row outside the port of LA that had nearly 200,000 containers waiting to be unloaded. And normally, again, that process can be, normally 3 to 5 days to get through a port and on a truck and on its way. Some of these were taking up to 2 months to get through. Just crazy to think about it. Containers normally are around $2,500 to ship from China to the U.S. Right now, they're trading for anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 for those same containers because there's such a demand and there's such a backlog over there to get them transferred over. There's ship shortages. There's the actual containers that everything are shipped in. There's shortages of those. Once they do get here and finally make it through customs, there's actually trucking shortages and all of the FedExes and UPSs of getting it delivered from the manufacturers to us, they're overwhelmed. And it's this crazy tidal wave of shortages. And even one more one to throw in there is earlier this year, it was either late January, early February, we found out that when that deep freeze hit Texas, there's actually a Dow chemical plant that's located in Texas that makes much of the surlyn for golf balls, urethane for golf balls, makes much of the rubber compound that a lot of the grip companies use. Well, when that deep freeze hit Texas and it knocked all the power out, it actually knocked that factory offline for weeks. And what we're finding now is that there's huge, in addition to all the demand needs going on, there's huge shortages on the compounding products to make all of these products like ferrules and grips and urethanes and surlyns for golf balls. And so now we even have shortages on range balls. It's just crazy. But what it does is it just reminds us all, again, exactly like when we're on the golf course, is just to take a breath. Is it the end of the world that our clubs are going to be here in, maybe 12 weeks instead of 2 weeks like we're accustomed to? It's inconvenient for sure. But again, think long-term picture. Think about what's going on in the world and all the blessings that we have to be able to play this great sport that we all love and are passionate about. It probably puts it in a little bit of perspective, and things are getting better. They're slowly we're catching up, and a lot of manufacturers and shortages and shafts and grips and all that kind of stuff slowly are getting better. So hopefully by 2022, all of your stuff will be coming in a fairly timely manner. And with that, I'm going to switch over to a really amazing life story in one Jimmy Wayne. And give you a little bit of background on him. He's a former foster kid turned award-winning country recording artist whose songs and stories really highlight his mission to raise awareness for children in foster care. And that's his entire mission in life. If you're a country music fan, you totally recognize some of his hits, like Stay Gone, Paper Angels, I Love You This Much, Do You Believe Me Now? That last song earned the BMI's prestigious Millionaire Award for receiving more than 1 million radio spins, and was one of the most, if not the most played songs back then. In 2009, he toured with Brad Paisley. He's recorded Sarah Smile with Rock and Roll Hall of Famer duo Daryl Hall and John Oates, which are his good friends. And then in 2010, he paused everything. And he wanted to use his platform to raise awareness again for foster care. So he took off from Nashville and actually walked halfway across America from Nashville to Phoenix to raise awareness for kids aging out of the foster care system. So again, if you're not aware, when kids are 18 and are in foster care, if they haven't been adopted, at 18 they age out. There's no financial benefit for the homes or the places that are taking care of them, and they're literally just kind of booted out on the street. And so Jimmy has made it his mission in life to go around to each of the 50 states and have that extended to 21. And he has been hugely successful. I know here in California, he has actually been in front of our legislature and actually got that change made. So that walk all the way across from Nashville to Phoenix. Later that year, he would actually write his first book called Paper Angels, which is about the paper angels that the Salvation Army does that are gifts for kids. It's really amazing. It actually was made into a film in 2013. And then in 2014, he released the best-selling biography called Walk to Beautiful, The Power of Love and a Homeless Kid Who Found the Way. And I can tell you that this particular book is my favorite book I have ever read. It moved me to tears. It was inspiring. It was heartbreaking. Again, I have had the privilege of knowing Jimmy for a good decade or more. I learned all kinds of things about him and his background that I didn't know before. But what continually amazes me is his ability to rise above the tragedy and the negativity that he was born into and grew up in, and find the beauty in love and find the beauty in life. In 2016, he received the prestigious Points of Light Award from President George W. Bush, I should say, and then has continued to work with the foster care program to make that change from 18 to 21 across the country. Jimmy's one of those guys where when you spend 10 minutes with him, you always walk away thinking to yourself, geez, Louise, I need to go make a difference and a more profound impact in my community. It just rubs off on you. It's an amazing gift that he has. He now is a keynote speaker. He actually has a story called The Power of One that he goes around the world. He continues to perform. He's performed on the Grand Ole Opry over 220 times, lives in Nashville, and actually has been back writing some music more lately. And he, again, is one of the more powerful positive points of light that you're ever going to meet in your entire life. And I'm thrilled that he's going to join us today. So listen to this interview. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Go out and buy Walk to Beautiful if you haven't ever read it before. I promise you it's one of the more inspiring reads you've ever had. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce one Jimmy Wayne. Well, as I did on our introduction, I am thrilled to have Jimmy Wayne on as our guest this week on Hosel Rockets. I didn't mention it in his intro, although I glowed about him on a whole bunch of different things. One of the things we are most proud of is that here in Sacramento, Jimmy's been an integral part of our Golf and Guitars music festival here that has raised over $1.5 million for local deserving kids, and where we've given over 200 college scholarships. And Jimmy's been involved in more years than not over all of those last 13 years. And so, Jimmy, first of all, let me just tell you thank you for that, pal.
Thank you for having me. It's truly an honor being a part of that event. It's fun. It's, for the family. It's just fun being in that environment. Great food, really great entertainment, and an extraordinary host. So I'm very thankful for you and your wife and your family, and, of course, the local radio station.
Yep, for sure. So seeing as this is a golf podcast, and Jimmy, you have a I teased your Walk to Beautiful book in the intro here. I know a golf course played a role in your early childhood, and I was hoping maybe we could open with that story and then kind of dive into to be in the rest of the story there. So let's start with golf, maybe as the starting point.
Sure. When I was 7 years old, my mom took me and my sister, and we moved from Johnsonville, South Carolina, to Crowder's Mountain, North Carolina. And we moved in with my granddad, my mom's dad. Across the dirt road and across the church yard and across the main back road is a golf course. So you could literally sit in the living room of his house and you could look 100 yards away, not even that far, 20 yards maybe, and you're on a golf course. So really close. And my granddad was a bootlegger. He sold white liquor. He wasn't the kind of granddad that would spend time with his grandkids. He never spoke 2 words to me, and that was usually you punk or get out or you just really crotchety deal guy. One thing he did encourage me to do, and he spoke more than 2 words here, but he said, go out there on the golf course and hunt golf balls out of the bushes and creeks and take those golf balls and sell them back to the golfers for 25 cents. And I started a business. Obviously, this happened when I was around 10 years old because we lived with him on and off throughout my childhood. So around 10 years old is when this happened. Man, I spent the entire summer day hunting golf balls out of those creeks and those bushes, and I would put them in a tube sock, tie that tube sock to my belt loop, and I'd stand behind the green, out of the way, and I learned to be quiet. And, you know, the golfer would putt, and after that I'd say, golf ball, 25 cents. And sometimes they would, you know, they would kind of just nod their head and say thank you. Sometimes they wouldn't say anything. Sometimes they'd say, or they'd ask, what do you got, kid? I said, golf balls, you know. And they'd say, I give you $10 for the whole sleeve. And, man, I mean, to a 10-year-old, $10 is a lot of money. And I learned the most valuable thing in my life, which is the reason why I am where I'm at today. I learned a work ethic. I learned how to work at 10 years old. I learned how to get out there and work and not ask my granddad for money, my mom for money, or anybody else, or expect anything for free. I learned how to work. And that truly is my lifeline and what has saved my life and brought me to where I'm at today.
That's such a profound story, pal. And I know that extends not only in your work ethic in what has been your music career and your writing career and in your acting career, but also in some of the efforts that you have put forth in moving the aging out requirement from 18 to 21 for foster kids. And again, I tease a little bit in on that in our opening and my intro for you, but I thought maybe you could dive a little bit into that and maybe some of the work that you've done on that front in, you know, all of the hard effort and work drawn from those early lessons in that regard too.
Well, there's not always a monetary return on your investment when you work. And picking golf balls out of the bushes and selling them back to the golfers, there was definitely a return, a monetary return. And, of course, that would allow me to take my sister and to the public swimming pool, and we'd have enough money to get in and enough money to buy chips and a soda. When I was 16 years old, I was rescued by a family because inevitably I ended up living in foster care and moved around from home to home and was split up from my sister when I was 13 and she was 14. But by the time I was 16, I ended up living on the street in North Carolina, and the only thing that kept me going afloat, if you will, was the fact that I knew how to work. And I would go out and I'd do odd jobs, and I'd make enough money to buy food. And inevitably, this family in their 70s, a 75-year-old woman and a 79-year-old man, gave me an opportunity. They allowed me to cut their grass. And then by the end of the summer, they invited me to move into their home, which inevitably gave me the opportunity to go back to school, go to college, get a decent job, which they did not pay for. They expected me to work and pay for it, which I did. And it gave me an opportunity to pursue and catch my dream, which is where the non-monetary equation falls into place here. It's because you think, I'm going to make it big and I'm going to make a lot of money. Well, sometimes, the best way to end up, sometimes the only way to end up with $1 million in the music business is to start with $2 million. You don't always make a living doing this, but I've been very blessed. But there's also another important element to this, and it's definitely non-monetary. It's taking all of that experience growing up in the foster care system, hunting golf balls, selling them, walking into convenience stores and just asking for, is there anything around here I can do because I'm hungry? I'll cut grass or do whatever to make enough money to buy food. All of that experience, and then, of course, all of the success that God has blessed me with, is to be able to take all of that and use it to now go and help children growing up the way I grew up. And to me, that's the biggest, most amazing payoff of my life and career, has been able to go, to stand on the Senate floor in California, in Sacramento, California, stand there in front of lawmakers, people who literally pass or write laws, bills, if you will, and you stand in front of them and you say, I am one of the children I'm standing here fighting for. And the fact that they listened, and then the governor signs this bill, that bill goes out of the Capitol, and then it is implemented. And all the kids in the state of California and across America are affected positively by this one bill that extended foster care to age 21 and gave these children, these young adults, 3 additional years to transition into adulthood, to become productive citizens. And then to meet those kids at certain events, like I'd go to a university recently and I spoke, and there was a few kids there that was a recipient of that bill. And I'm thinking, wow, man, they told me, they said, if that bill had not passed, I would not be in college right now. And the feeling that you get when you hear that is bigger than any award the music business could ever offer. There's no kind of award bigger than that, than to look at that girl sitting there with tears in her eyes, crying, saying, thank you for fighting for me. I would not be able to go to school. I don't know where I'd be, because I was about to age out at 18 years young in California. And most of the time, those kids, the age out, there's 30,000 a year. The age out, the majority of them end up homeless. 80% of the foster children that age out end up in sex trafficking. 80%.
That's amazing.
And it's crazy, man. And then 30,000 children, out of that 30,000 children, 49% of them are female. Think about it. And then within the first year of aging out, 50% of that 49%, those girls end up pregnant. So now you have that problem. And I hate to say problem, but it is a problem.
Yeah.
Because they're dependent on the government. Now their child is dependent on the government. So inevitably, the taxpayers pay for this stuff. So why not encourage these kids to start working early? I'm getting back to that, because that's truly the lifeline to work. And that way they can take care of themselves, but ultimately being able to help them get the bills passed and all that, to help give them that little extra time, as long as they are helping themselves. Man, there is no bigger, greater feeling than that. I'm telling you. I'm so thankful for you and what your golf complex has done to support my cause and my campaign to help these kids for so many years, Ken. I mean, you have been there, your family's been there. It's just, when, I mean, you can edit this out if you want to, but I'm always defending California. I am, man, because I'm in the South. And in the South, people think people in California are Hollywood. That's all they know.
Are you suggesting that I'm not Hollywood, Jimmy?
I'm suggesting that you are not Hollywood. And I always tell these folks, I'm like, listen, I can tell you of the nicest human being you'll ever meet, and that's Ken Morton. I mean, he and his family, I don't know what it is, but they are consistently nice every time you talk to them, every time you see them. I mean, just the nicest. And so it's always fun to tell these people what you do, what your golf complex does to help children and to help people. It really, they just look at me like, really? I'm like, yeah, man, this guy is totally not what you're thinking California people are like.
Well, we can't do it without your help. You mentioned California. Jimmy, how many states around the country have moved from 18 to 21, and how many more do we still have to go?
Well, so far that I know of, there's been 23 states that's extended foster care to age 21. However, within those states, you have counties. So let's say there's 200 counties in Tennessee or whatever. If those counties don't implement that law, then what good is it?
Right.
So we have to make sure. And also, here's another battle. If one county has more money than the other county, then these children get more help than these children. And, for instance, the kids in the rural America, these little kids living in trailer parks, they don't have a laundromat on the premise. They don't have access to the local facilities downtown. They're out in rural America. These kids are struggling just as hard or even worse or more than a lot of the other kids that's getting a lot of attention. So we need to make sure we remember that and remember the kids in rural America.
If you're out there and you're listening to this and you're compelled to help, Jimmy, how do people get involved in spreading this message and helping these kids?
Usually people like to help people in their own hometown. I've learned that over the past 20 plus years I've been doing this. Sometimes they don't know where to start, and I would always say, if you have a computer, just Google organizations in my community or near me that help children. And usually you can find an organization in your community somehow, some way that's helping kids. If you don't want to do that, if you just don't want to be known, because some people don't want to do it in their community because they don't want people to know what they're doing, then I would suggest going on, you can still Google, organizations that are helping, or I have a website called Project MMH, as in Meet Me Halfway.org. It's not it's a page where you can go, you can see what I'm doing, and let's say you want to donate money to an organization, but you don't know which one you want to donate to. I set up this fund page, if you will, or I just call it envelope, that is hosted by the Nashville Community Alliance. I don't handle the money. I never see it. I never touch it. I never look at it. I never count it. I never nothing. The only thing that I do is I set up a folder for people to go to and donate. They can put their donation in that folder. It sits in that folder. 100% of it sits in that folder until I am either contacted by an organization somewhere in rural America that needs help. And what this organization does in Nashville, they'll do a little small investigation to find out if they're legitimate, if they have a tax ID, if they're on the up and up, and find out what they need. They need 20 mattresses or whatever. Then they'll call me and say, Jimmy, this organization is on the up and up. They need 20 mattresses. The mattresses are going to cost $100 a piece. Okay, take the money from that fund and write them a check and send it to them. That's how it works. And people say, well, how did that organization make money to stay afloat? Well, the interest. That's how they keep the organization going.
Gotcha. Switching gears a little bit, I know you. I touched upon your authorships of a couple books, but you're also doing some keynote speaking. Talk to me about Power of One and kind of the messaging that you're going out and delivering to corporate America.
In 2010, I walked halfway across America to raise awareness for these children, these young adults aging out. And, you know, when I got back to Nashville, I walked 1,700 miles every single step of the way. And when I got back to Nashville, I had my mind was completely different. I mean, my outlook truly was different. I no longer had a desire to be a star, like on the stage, getting my, trying to be showy or anything. I just was not interested in that anymore because I really felt like that, God had another plan for me, rather than being a star, just to be a light for somebody else that needs help finding their way.
You had a higher calling.
I thought, exactly. So I was like, people were asking me, man, when are you going to get back in the studio? When are you blah, blah, blah? And I'm just like, I'm just not led to do that anymore. So I started doing some keynote speeches, sharing my story, my testimony, and I realized, Ken, it is absolutely what I'm supposed to be doing. Man, it is amazing. I go into rooms filled with people who would never go to a country concert. I mean, CEOs, highfalutin people, to social workers, to inventors, to entrepreneurs here. The Porta-John Association. I've been in every room you can imagine, in front of people, and I shared the same story, the Power of One, how this family took me in and changed my life. It's not a foster care story. It's just a very inspirational, motivational story that will move your audience to action 100% of the time. This thing is such a powerful story. It's such a surgical strike into the hearts of everyone in that room, grown men crying, people just moved. What can I do to help? Or that movie was so inspiring to me because I've been there. No one knows my story because I've always just been ashamed to tell it. But now I'm so thankful for it. It's just amazing to see how God has turned my life into this, put me on stages in front of people who I would never, thought I'd be there. It's truly amazing what's happening in my life right now, just because I decided to follow what God wanted me to do, and I'm doing it, man. It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. I get to take Jackie with me. She comes out on the road with me, and it's just us. And we'll go out and I'll speak. And sometimes if it's a really cool area where we can go, like Tahoe or whatever, we'll book on another day and spend that day down by the water. So it's like he's giving me this job and an opportunity to have a day vacation. It's amazing.
Central to Jimmy's book is this family that took him in, and this little white-haired lady named Bee. And she is the light that sparked Jimmy's light in this book. And again, I cannot recommend this book high enough. As I mentioned earlier in the intro, it will move you to tears and make you laugh out loud. But most of all, it will inspire. But Jimmy, every time we bring her up, I find it remarkable that this little old unassuming lady now through you is touching tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. It's pretty remarkable if you think about it, isn't it?
Yes, millions of people. I stood in Russia. I had an interpreter to interpret the story. So they were hearing me talk, but they were hearing what the interpreter was saying. And even through an interpreter, that story translated to people standing up, clapping and crying. In Russia, I stood in Guatemala, same thing. I stood just everywhere, because it's the power of one. What one person can do that positively affects someone else's life forever. And that's exactly what this woman did. 75 years old, took in a 16-year-old long-haired tattooed kid living on the street, and gave me an opportunity. Boy, I tell you what, I wouldn't be here. I mean, I could just go on and on about her.
Yeah.
And she's just humble. She was humble. She never told me anything that she did for other people. And I found out after she was promoted to glory that all these people are sitting in the church. Small town America, you know everybody. But there was all these people in the congregation that I didn't know. And I asked her daughter after the funeral, I was like, who is that? And she said, oh, that's such and such. Mom took her in the early 90s and helped her, and that's her and her husband and her family now. Oh, that's such and such. That's, what's his name? Mom and Dad took him in the 70s or the 80s, and that's him and his wife and his family and their kids. Oh, that's such and such over there. Mom, I found out I was just one of many kids they'd helped. Unbelievable, man. I'm telling you the truth. It's unbelievable what they did for so many people. And the stories to this very day still pour in about the generosity that this family showed people in the community. They tell me stories. They had the first television in the community within a 50-mile radius. They would put that television up in the window of their gas station, and they'd turn it around, facing outside. So people in the community would come from all over and sit on the lawn and watch TV like a theater.
Wow.
They did that. They did that for people. They were so selfless. They served all the pastors each Sunday. Pastors from all around would come to their house, and they would serve the pastors first. Kids played in the yard. Everybody else waited. They served the pastors first. The pastors ate. They got them left. Then the rest of the family and the kids came in and ate. That's the way they lived life.
Power of one, huh?
Yep. Yep. They were just an amazing human being. That lady just truly, and the reason why I keep referring to that lady rather than that couple, it's obviously the couple, Russell, her husband, but he passed away 3 months after I moved in with them. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and it just took him real quick. So I stayed with her 6 years, just me and Bea. Unbelievable.
Well, anyone that's in a relationship, and I can, speak to my wife and with you, with Jackie, we're just doing what we're told from our better half anyways, right? So.
I'm learning, Ken. Boy. I tell you what, brother, listen to this. Being a street kid, it is so hard for me to take orders. You know what I mean? I don't do well with that. I could have never handled being a criminal and being in jail, because it's what you're going to take orders.
Sure.
And it's one of the reasons why I've just been very independent my whole life, took care of myself, and I'm learning that you have to compromise and you have to, think about somebody else's feelings. Used to it wasn't that way. It was like, you're on your own, man, but not now.
That's the second lesson in life that you're going to be learning, and that's the power of two, buddy.
You said that right, brother. I love it. The power of two. That sounds great. I love it, man. I'm going to write a book called that. I'm ready for that.
Well, Jimmy, thank you.
Man, I'm telling you, it's amazing, man. I sorry to interrupt you there, Ken.
Oh, no problem. I just wanted to tell you thank you so very much for your time. For those folks that are local here in Northern California listening to us, Jimmy, again, is going to grace us with his attendance at Golfing Guitars. This year's event is going to be October 19th, which is Tuesday. We're thrilled that he's going to be coming back out. I'm sure Jackie will be out with them, and you can. What's great about this event is that Jimmy is so approachable and can share his story directly with you. I'd encourage you to go out and purchase his book and read it prior to his visit. I promise you, it will change your life. So Jimmy, thank you so much for your time, pal, and we will look forward to seeing you in October.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken, so much.